All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest in this topic. I'm assuming that since you've signed up for this, knowing that it's an introduction to the nutritional rebirth, that you're someone that likely has spent a lot of time and energy and probably money on improving your health and understanding your health. You're probably someone who has certain symptoms that are somewhat of a mystery to you and have not really gotten to the bottom of it yet, and have a deep desire and a deep knowing, actually, that the body is capable of healing. Otherwise, we wouldn't pursue this in the way that we do. You're also likely someone who takes care of yourself better than most people that you know, and yet are a little bit confused as to why perhaps you might feel like you have less energy, or that you have symptoms that are really hard to crack the code to. And so the title of this webinar is When Good People Don't Feel Good. And being, as I said, an introduction to the nutritional rebirth, of course, there are many things that contribute to our feeling good. Of course, we are, multifaceted beings, but nutrition is a really, really big piece. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on this evening, as well as drawing links to other parts of our being and how our heart and our intuition and our mind can help us to clarify our nutritional path, and to help us to orient in a direction that's as direct as possible towards better health. I also have the sincere desire not to add any confusion this evening. I would love for you to leave this time together feeling more clear, more confident in your body's capacity to heal, more gentle with yourself, more understanding towards where you're at right now, and more understanding of your body's incredible capacity to heal itself, as well as all of the help that's available to us all of the time from seen and unseen sources. So while I'll be sharing my particular perspective on nutrition, I can only do that, right? As a person who has gone through much of what you've gone through, including very scary symptoms at times, and frustration and fear around my health, I have been fortunate to find a way to, with nutrition in particular, that has made a tremendous difference in my life, and has really allowed me to relax into this topic of nutrition, which has been a passion of mine for, over 30 years now. So I understand that for a lot of us, because we've tried a lot of different nutritional approaches, because there is such a plethora of nutritional advice and approaches out there, it can be very confusing. And also we can tend to lose our trust. When we've spent a lot of money and a lot of time and energy, and we've trusted people and not seen great results, it's not that these people are deliberately trying to mislead us, but sometimes they are, actually. But a lot of times, people are very good-hearted, but disease and the body at this time, from many perspectives, is quite a bit of a mystery. And so what I would like to invite you to do, or how to approach this, is to trust yourself, to trust that which has given you this interest in physical healing, that which has taken you this far along your path, is really your guiding light and will continue to orient you in that direction. This is an evolution, and we're in a true revolutionary time right now, because we're breaking free of this idea collectively that the body is wrong, that the body is not intelligent, that the body is doing something wrong when it has symptoms. We're breaking free of that, and we're opening ourselves to the supreme intelligence. Our body is condensed spirit, essentially, and it is incredibly interested in creating a home for our being, for our soul, and it is always trying to orient us in that direction. So to trust that which has given you this interest in health and in nutrition and in evolution, and to just be patient with the process, because all of us are in this unfolding process and the pieces drop in one at a time. And I hope that our time together today is one of those pieces that allows you to anchor more deeply into your own process and to trust that. The other thing that I think has really helped me along my journey is to, of course, use my mind when it comes time to choosing those things that I'm going to apply to my life to help me to feel better. So a lot of times that which we hear out there doesn't even really make logical sense. You know, a lot of the nutritional advice, when you think about it, when you reflect on it, when you reflect on certain simple principles of the human body, they don't even really make sense. And I'm not even going to, I've thought, you know, when I was preparing for this, I would kind of point out some of the theories out there of nutrition that I don't think make a lot of sense, but I don't want this to be an against anything, because we're all finding our way. But in my eyes, there's a lot of things out there that people are following that don't make sense given our physiology, given our evolution, given the basic needs of a human body. So does it make intuitive or logical sense to you, like to the mind? The other thing is that I would say to trust your intuition. So we all have this sense of inner knowing that I think for many of us, it has become diminished because we rely so much on the mind. But we all have this ever developing sense of intuition, this just inner knowing that something feels right or it doesn't. Our body relaxes, we feel open and inspired. Oftentimes the heart will open. So this heart sense of what feels right for us as a being, because when we're choosing our nutritional approach, yes, it's got to resonate for the body, but it's also got to resonate for the soul, for the heart, for the mind, for the emotions. So trusting that heart sense, trusting that intuitive sense, trusting your experience. So when you're applying these principles, how do you feel? What kind of changes or shifts occur in the body? And I get that can be confusing sometimes, because very often when we embark on a new approach to nutrition, or we bring new things in that are actually healing, that we can have these mini healing crises, which is when the symptoms kind of get ramped up as the body begins to detoxify. So we have to balance this sense of awareness and see that, well, actually, yes, my energy is better and my bowel movements are better and my sleep is better. Yeah, my skin got worse, but because the balance is actually moving in a positive direction, my mind feels clearer, emotionally I'm more fluid, all of those things. And then there might be something that gets out of balance for a while in the process of healing. But generally, there's this overall sense that the system is feeling more aligned, more harmonious, moving in a direction of more vitality. And so we really have to rely on our own experience as we apply the principles that we learn. And this is one of the reasons why I offer this nutritional rebirth twice a year, because when people embark on it, and it's a 9-day process, which is really, by all accounts, something that's rare for us nowadays, to embark on a cleanse that's going to last that long. And it really gives us the opportunity to see that, wow, inflammation goes down in a day or two, my digestion improves, my energy levels go up, my symptoms begin to reverse. And with the nutritional rebirth, this is an actual fact. This is what happens. So we get to experience for ourselves when we shift our dietary approach to what is included in the nutritional rebirth, that the body responds very favorably. And this also can give us a greater sense of confidence and trust, can renew this deep trust in our body's capacity to heal, given the right conditions. So I guess I'm going to cut to the chase around the question, when good people don't feel good, why is that? Essentially, if you were to break human health into kind of two main categories, they would be, or reasons for human illness, actually, that would be deficiencies and toxicity. So there's two main reasons for illness and symptoms and why the body isn't functioning as well as it can. One is it doesn't have the nutrients that it requires to really kind of fire up the cells so that they can work to their maximum capacity. And there's all kinds of reasons for this. One being that much of our soil nowadays is very, very depleted. And so if the nutrients aren't in the soil, they're not going to be in the food that we consume either. And many of us may have been raised, even though many of us are probably eating more whole foods today, maybe we were raised on refined foods. And so at the very, very beginning of our lives, we didn't get a buildup of those nutritional reserves. And then you go through periods of stress, pregnancy and childbirth, which is going to draw from our nutritional reserves. And this can all eventually just erode away at the body's capacity to maintain balance. But none of this is our fault, so to speak. If our mother was nutritionally deficient, then she will pass that on to us. And then if our parents, for some reason, weren't that interested in nutrition and were feeding us a fair bit of refined foods, that's not our fault, right? It's just what happened. And the soil being depleted, of course, we have the choice sometimes, if it's financially feasible for us, to buy higher quality, perhaps organic foods, but that's not even always a possibility for all of us. The second part of this, the reason why people get sick is that toxicity. And that too, for the most part, is not our fault. So when I speak about toxicity, there's different levels of that. But essentially, when we are exposed to toxins in our environment, in our food, in our air, in our water, in the products that we use to clean our bodies, to clean our homes, these chemicals embed themselves into our tissues, particularly the liver, which is designed to filter toxins out and to neutralize them as best that it can. But oftentimes we're all being deluged with so many toxins that the liver packs them away deep into the core of the liver, hoping that it will maybe be able to deal with it later. It's sort of like when we put a bunch of boxes and old things in our basement somewhere, and the intention is to deal with it later. And so that's what the liver does. And so these toxins get embedded deeply into the core of the liver and eventually begin to affect the function of the liver. So these toxicities may be coming from our environment, but a vast majority of the toxins in our body actually were inherited from our parents, from our mother. Many of them are coming through sources that we have very little control over. And then there's also internal toxins that are generated as a result of our metabolism. So when we eat certain foods, if our digestive strength isn't that high, or if those foods are just simply hard to digest, there always tends to be a residue. So we don't digest things cleanly. For example, a lot of the refined grains, a lot of the meats, high fat foods, high protein foods are quite hard for our digestion to break down. And so what ends up happening is they are just partially digested. As they move through our many feet of intestines, they can putrefy there and become impacted on the walls of the intestine, where they create a breeding ground for pathogens. So partially it's just that our digestive fire isn't as high, but also that we've been educated actually to eat high fat, high protein foods, not knowing that actually they're not the cleanest digesting, and that they can actually impact our health detrimentally down the line as we get older and our digestive fire decreases even more. There are also toxins, and maybe the most toxic residues that are in our system are coming from viruses and bacteria that are a natural part of our physiology and our biology, that over the last 200 years are becoming more and more diverse. So everything has bacteria and viruses. They're all over the place. They're in the air, they're in the soil, they're in our homes, they're on our skin. Our body is actually more bacteria and virus than it is cells. So it's a very natural part of who we are. And the bacteria and viruses are meant to be the cleanup crew of our bodies. So they take care of going into the nooks and crannies of our body and cleaning up any toxic residues, any undigested foods, and completing the digestion process so that the system is running more smoothly. But at the beginning of during the Industrial Revolution, when we started creating our first pesticides, when we started digging deep into the earth and pulling heavy metals up, when we started creating chemicals for everything that we, the things that we clean with, and started using chemicals in our food preservation, these chemicals, of course, ended up in our bodies. And I'll just speak about viruses right now, but it's similar with bacteria. The virus's job was to clean up these toxins. So it might, see some mercury somewhere in the brain, and it would then engulf that. And in the process of digesting it, of course, anything that digests something is also going to excrete. And the more toxins that we have been exposed to, the more the toxic byproduct of the digestion of the viruses got. Not only that, when a virus digests toxins, the whole environment that it's living in gets more and more toxic. And even the virus can't stand it, so it mutates. So that there might have been one version of Epstein-Barr virus in the 1800s, and now there's 60, 70 different types, because it just keeps mutating. And we're seeing it with COVID right now too. So everything wants to live, everything wants to survive. And so you throw toxins at it, it's going to morph so that it can survive that environment. But the point is that when viruses and bacteria are consuming toxins in our body, heavy metals, radiation, pesticides, and certain foods, which I'll speak about in a moment, they give off extremely toxic residues, even more toxic than the initial chemical. And this is the only cause actually of inflammation in the body. Well, I would say injury is obviously one as well, but if there's unexplained inflammation in the body, it's always because of these toxic residues coming from viral byproducts. Sometimes those toxic residues end up in our nervous system, where they create things like restless legs and multiple sclerosis and anxiety and depression, brain fog, things like that. Sometimes those toxins end up in our skin. So dermatoxins would end up creating things like eczema and psoriasis and things like that. The other thing about these viruses is over the years, they have become more and more oriented to eating certain foods. So there's certain foods that we consume as human beings that actually encourage the viruses to thrive. And so in the cleanse that we do, and personally in my everyday life, I try to avoid these foods, or I do avoid these foods for the most part, because I had symptoms that were related to toxicity from these viruses. And I found that within a month of taking these foods out of my diet, I had a vast improvement in my symptoms. So these foods are not a secret. I mean, many of them, we all know that gluten is a problem for most people. So wheat and all the glutinous grains. Eggs is the #1 feeder of these viruses. There's a lot of research being done on these viruses right now. And when the scientists have them in the lab, they actually feed them eggs. So if someone is suffering from any kind of mystery disease or any kind of symptoms related to inflammation, or any malfunction of any organ, really, essentially, we could just narrow it down to that. It's very important to remove the eggs and see how the system will respond from that. Dairy is another one, but again, that's not a real big secret in the holistic health field. Usually, most naturopaths and holistic doctors and practitioners will have you take dairy out if you're having symptoms that are not being resolved by any other means. Canola oil, of course, corn and soy are two others. And what's happening there is that, these foods used to be very wholesome foods. There was not a problem with them, and they were actually a very important part of our diet, and really kind of filled certain gaps. But what's happening as the quality of the food decreases and as our toxicity and the viral level goes up, these just happen to be the foods that the viruses are selecting to feed on. One, because of the proteins and fats in there, but also many of the other foods, like the fruits and the vegetables, have antiviral properties in them. So this is why the viruses wouldn't even, they would actually be destroyed by things like apples and lettuce and celery and oranges and mangoes and bananas and things like that. They all have very strong antiviral properties, whereas eggs and dairy and wheat and some of the other things that I mentioned do not have those antiviral properties. They actually feed them. So just to kind of finish what I'm saying off is that one reason why many of us don't feel good is that we have levels of toxicity through no fault of our own in our body that require, or I feel require, special attention to help these toxins to release from the body. And this is why, as a nutritionist, probably the major part of my practice is offering this cleanse every 6 months or so that we can do it together, because I think we're all familiar with the fact that it's very easy to get inspired to do a cleanse and very difficult to follow through. I know many times, before I started doing these cleanses, I would start and, have the intention of going for a week or so, and within 2 or 3 days, just kind of, it would lose steam. And so one of the things that I enjoy about the Nutritional Rebirth is that we can come together. Usually there's a good group of us, 25, 35 people, and know that we are all on the same journey together. And through that collective field, we can support each other. We can share our trials and our tribulations. We can also benefit from the power of a shared field to help us to hold space for any kind of emotional cleansing that happens all the time when we change our dietary habits, and when we're releasing physical toxins, there's always going to be a release of emotional toxins. And so one of the things that I like to do is, whether I'm working with clients one-on-one or in this cleanse, is to really hold space for the group and for what is arising and moving through, and to celebrate that, actually, just as we celebrate the release of toxins and the release of viral byproducts and whatnot. We also celebrate the freedom and the release that happens in the body as it lets go of any emotions that might be embedded and intertwined with these toxins. It's interesting, usually when we're eating foods that aren't that great for us, we kind of know it, right? But often when we're doing that, it's because we're in an emotional state, right? So when I'm choosing foods that are really fatty and heavy and salty, it's often, if I were to slow down, because I'm feeling lonely or anxious or something like that. And so when I cleanse and the toxins from that pizza, for example, begin to clear out, that loneliness and that anxiety will also clear out with them. And so one of the things that I really underscore in my work with clients and those who choose to join us for the nutritional rebirth is to support ourselves emotionally. And over the course of the cleanse, there's always opportunities to sit together and meditate, and to open to what it is that's moving through, and to welcome that through. So from my experience, I feel that in this day and age, we could all really benefit from regular cleanses. It's one thing to overall have a clean diet, but when we focus our energy on maybe taking it to the next level over the course of a cleanse, it really gives our body the opportunity to open up and to dig deeper. It gives our body the nutrients and the strength to go a little bit deeper. I know for myself, I've done this particular cleanse. I've been doing these cleanses with groups for maybe 20 years now, but it's just in the last maybe 6 years that I've been doing this particular version of it, and I'll talk more about it in a moment. But I've done it, with the groups, but I've also done it in between very often. In fact, in the last 4 or 5 months, I've done it probably 6 or 7 times. And the main reason for that is that I have a new partner in my life, and he had some health issues, and it's really motivated me to take him through these cleanses and to support him. And of course, I've benefited greatly as well. And the results that he's had are quite incredible. He's lost 40 pounds. His blood levels are absolutely normal now. His symptoms are greatly reduced. I mean, he's had them for 20, 30 years, so it's going to take a while, but greatly reduced. So it's quite inspiring for me to experience that. My own health issues that I mentioned have reversed over this period, but they continue to improve, and energy levels continue to improve, and levels of sleep and mental clarity and all of that are just, each time I do the cleanse, it seems like there's kind of an elevation that happens. So I think there's a few things that are really important when you're choosing a cleanse. The first thing I think is that the cleanse needs to be gentle but effective. It needs to be gentle but effective. Sometimes we can't really see how that would go together. Like if it's gentle, then maybe it's not, maybe all this time that I'm spending and the energy that I'm putting into this cleanse I'm not getting, as much out of it as I could. But the truth is our body has gone through a lot. It's been a lot for our body to be deluged constantly with less than optimal food, with lots of toxins, not to mention the stress that accompanies living in this day and age. And so because our body has been through so much, we need to be careful not to push it into things that could just traumatize it in a way. And I'm guilty of this. And when I'm talking about pushing it into things, I'm talking about things like liver flushes, where you drink, half a cup of olive oil to try to get your gallbladder to kind of squirt out some stones, or even possibly enemas could be a little bit, especially coffee enemas, could be a little bit intense, or a water fast. A water fast is extremely effective, but the pace at which the toxins are released can be very overwhelming for the body. And what happens is that the liver's got to reabsorb those toxins, because it just can't quite, the whole system isn't quite equipped to eliminate them in a smooth and clean way. So gentle but effective. And by effective, I mean we should see some positive results pretty soon into the beginning of the cleanse. And by the end of the cleanse, we should feel a decided improvement in various aspects of our health, however we measure that. Cleanses need to be hydrating. I believe that we need to consume a lot of water-rich foods, and if possible, eliminate salt for a while. So if you were to wash your oven or your floors, you know that there's 3 ingredients needed there. One, you're going to need lots of water, right? If you just kind of use your cleaner and your brush, it's not going to really remove it. You know that you need water to dissolve that caked on stuff in your oven. And so it's the same thing with the body. We have a lot of caked on residue in our guts, in our cells, in our liver. When the liver stores toxins, it tends to kind of compact it with a little bit of a calcium coating around it, just to try to protect us. But if we're going to get at those toxins, that needs to be dissolved. And so lots of water-rich foods, and that would be, of course, primarily living foods, because that's where the living water is. And anytime you cook a food, you're going to decrease the water content. Also, possibly celery juice, which is included in the cleanse, the nutritional rebirth. So juices, as well as lemon water. So when we are drinking water, of course, it's hydrating, but most water that's coming out of our taps or even out of our filtration systems is dead water, because it's been sitting in taps. It's been sitting stagnant for a while. And living water has a vitality and energy, a kind of a spin to it. And when you squeeze a little bit of lemon into your water, you're reminding that water of its natural state, which is alive. Even when water comes out of the earth, it's spinning as it comes up. And there's a configuration to the H2O molecules that creates an aliveness to the water. And so by adding lemon to the water, you're reminding of it of its aliveness. And in that state, the body is much more able to absorb that into the cells to create that level of hydration, and to also dissolve the toxins that are there. A cleansing diet also needs to be on the low fat side. And I know that there's a lot of tendencies in our nutritional world right now to orient people towards high fat, say ketogenic diets. The feeling here is that in order for the body to excrete toxins, the blood needs to be thin, it needs to be clean, it needs to be oxygenated. And when there's a lot of fat in the blood, there's not a big pull, one, to draw toxins out of the cells, but also it's very difficult for nutrients to get into the cells, because the fat almost creates like a barrier, a film that prevents that easy exchange between the cells and the blood. Also, of course, the more fat in the blood, the less oxygen the blood can carry. And if we want to increase our energy levels and our vitality and the health of our skin and our organs, we need to have oxygen in there, our capacity to think. So really important to lower the amounts of fat. And in this cleanse, we gradually lower the fat over the first 3 days. And then the last 6 days, there are no what we call radical fats at all. The other thing that is needed is nutrients, of course. And these nutrients are necessary on many, many levels, but some of them are, one, nutrients to help to rebuild the life force of the cells and of the organs. So part of what prevents the body from working as hard for you as it can is that it just doesn't have the phytonutrients in order to do that. And this is why so much of this cleanse is, actually all of it, is fruits and vegetables, some wild foods and herbs as well, that all complement each other. But fruits and vegetables have the widest array of phytonutrients that you won't find anywhere else in the grains or in the beans or in the meats or the dairies. And they are extremely bioavailable, and they carry no toxicity as they come in either. So a cleanse needs to really be bringing in a lot of nourishment. We're not just cleansing, we're nourishing at the same time, right? And that's one of the issues, say, for example, with water fasting, is we're not giving ourselves that deep nourishment that our system needs. Now, once we are healed and once the system is really saturated with nutrition, then perhaps that might be a time to do a water fast. The other thing is that the nutrients that we're taking in need to be able to kind of scrub the system clean. So earlier I said that when we're cleaning a dirty oven, we need water, but we also need soap. And in the world of nutrition, the soap part is the mineral salts that are contained in many of the vegetables that we consume every day, but also that we kind of accelerate during the cleanse. So, for example, one part of the cleanse is to drink celery juice every morning. And it's 16 ounces of celery juice, which really is a whole head of celery. And the celery is one of the best, and the mineral salts that are contained in there are extremely concentrated. And they have the capacity, one, to kill off viruses and bacteria and all pathogens, including parasites and funguses. But also celery juice has the capacity to be that soap-like scrubber that can help to slough off the residue on the walls of the intestine, that can help to get at the pockets of toxins that have been stored in our nervous system, in our brain, in our liver, in our dense organs. So celery juice is a true miracle, actually, when it comes to cleansing. And as I say, in this cleanse, we'll be drinking some every day. And even the last 3 days, we have 2 glasses a day. But also the mineral salts come from leafy greens as well. So the nutrients from leafy greens are extremely helpful as well with loosening up the toxins, neutralizing the chemicals that they might be encountering, neutralizing the viruses and the bacteria. Greens are also really, really essential for cleaning out the lymphatic system, which is the fluids around your cells. That's the lymphatic system, and that can tend to really get a buildup of toxicity as well. And so there's an emphasis on greens in a cleansing diet. Of course, we all know that a salad a day would be quite helpful, or munching on cucumbers or celery and things like that. We all know that it feels good when we do that. During this cleanse, and I believe any effective cleanse that was really going to show you some pretty clear results, it would be important to eliminate all of the foods that feed the pathogens. So the ones that I mentioned earlier, as well as some other things if you really want to step it up. So things that you could eliminate and that it's encouraged to eliminate during this cleanse beyond the foods I've already mentioned are salt, again, to really allow for that hydration level. And many of us who have been eating relatively high levels of salt have crystallized salt pockets in our system, and the level of hydration as well as the celery juice is going to help to break that down. But the more we get salt buildup in our tissues, the more dehydrated they get actually, and less they can function properly. So the idea is to eliminate that if possible. I know that was a hard one for me, but in the last several times that I've done the cleanse, I've taken it out completely. And over time, one gets used to it, and one begins to taste the natural salts in celery, for example, or in the cucumbers or in the lettuce. The other thing that I encourage people to eliminate during this cleanse is any kind of fermented foods, any kind of vinegars, for the same reason. The fermentation process, which creates natural vinegars, can tend to kind of pickle your organs, especially if you're taking in a fair bit. And again, there's that dehydration factor there, which eventually is going to affect the functioning. And so you would want to let those go during a cleanse. Natural flavors, which is ubiquitous actually in many of the teas that we find at the health food store. But unfortunately, in the process of making so-called natural flavors, there is an MSG-like compound which actually feeds the viruses. So be careful about that when you're purchasing herbal teas. So anyways, this is all laid out in the cleanse, as I said, but these are some of the things that I would think would be important to really get strong benefits from a cleanse. I think that it's also important for a cleanse to feel physically satisfied. And, with the nutritional rebirth, I would say that it's very possible, and I know some of you have done it, that there is a kind of a dissatisfaction, especially in the first days, as we let go of those foods that may be more emotionally satisfying for us. It's true that most of the foods, maybe all of them, aren't really deeply emotionally satisfying in the way that, say, dairy is, or salt, or high-fat foods, nuts, things like that. Wheat is also, for many of us, is kind of like one of those foods that just feels really emotionally satisfying, but unfortunately, doesn't really benefit us. So what I find, I recently did this cleanse with my daughter. She came to live here for 9 days, and so the last time we did it with her. And she's done it before, but I don't think she's followed it as closely as she did when she was here. And I know the first day or 2 or 3, she was really feeling kind of deprived, because I had taken the salt out completely and was really following the cleanse to a T. But she said by the day 4 and 5, her cravings were gone, and she was feeling, quite satisfied, not thinking about food all the time. So it can take a little bit of a transition to get to the place where the cravings may disappear. But what I'm saying is that there's as much food as you want to have. There's no limit to the amount of food that you can consume, and you're encouraged to eat large quantities. And I think it's important when we cleanse that we don't feel deprived in the sense that we're not getting enough calories in, because that can put us into a state that is a little bit stressful, and that's the last thing that we want to do here. So you're encouraged to eat as much as you want, to have, large smoothies, large salads, lots of potatoes, lots of vegetables, steamed vegetables, lots of apples and dates and things like that. The other thing I think that I feel is important when we're doing a cleanse is to recognize that it's not just the body that's going through this cleanse, it's the soul, it's the emotional being, it's the nervous system. And so I feel like a cleanse needs to nourish and consider our emotional being, our spiritual being. And what I love about including a lot of fruits and vegetables is that they are the most emotionally uplifting and nurturing and spiritually awakening foods. And so I think this is a really important part, because when we do these cleanses, we're taking our whole being through it. And sometimes certain cleanses can, maybe, yeah, you'll lose a lot of weight and whatnot, but how do you feel emotionally during this cleanse? How do you feel spiritually? Is there a sense of emotional fluidity? I'm not saying that there won't be emotions that move through, but is there a sense of fluidity that they pass through, or are they kind of getting stuck there? Do we sense moments of inspiration, of greater inspiration, of greater clarity, of mental clarity? So I really feel that a cleanse should support all aspects of our being and should move all aspects of our being forward. So one of the things that I mentioned when I was writing the material to let you know about this cleanse is that I feel that many of us who have struggled with our health are actually more open vessels to great improvements in our health, to the joy of experiencing a well body that has all the energy that it needs. I feel that many of us came in actually to experience physical issues and to overcome those issues, to draw to us the resources that we need to overcome those issues, as humanity as a whole moves from a place of distrust of the body, of distrust of the earth, of disregard of the body, disregard of the earth, into a place of deep reverence for the body and for the earth. And those of us who have suffered the most in our bodies eventually have to come to the place where we make peace with our bodies, where we treat our bodies with kindness, where we open to the language of our bodies. And so we can develop an even deeper connection to ourselves, and through our bodies, our intuition, to the wisdom of our emotional being, and also be examples for people around us, which I think is very much needed in our culture right now. It seems to me that pretty much every adult that I know, and even children, are suffering from some kind of symptom or another. And it feels like what happens is that we see it so much around us that we begin to believe that it's normal, that physical symptoms are normal. It's just something that happens, or it's just something that happens to my body. I inherited it because my mother had the same symptoms. Well, actually, your mother had the same viruses and toxins in her body as well, and probably also inherited your way of eating from your parents as well. So I feel that very little, if any, of our symptoms are genetic. Certain things we did inherit, of course, and that's why we tend to see things in family lines. But I also believe that when we can come across material that lands with us, and we can find the support both within ourselves and outside of ourselves to move forward, we can be true inspirations for our friends and our families, and also experience the health that we know is possible for us. So I just want to speak a little bit about the nutritional rebirth, and I'm going to open it up for questions as well. Actually, feel free while I'm speaking to write any questions in the chat bar, but if it feels like it's going to be too long, then just wait a little bit and then you can turn on your mic. So the cleanse that we are doing in the nutritional rebirth has actually been created by a brilliant health practitioner called Anthony William, also known as the medical medium. And so the reason that I'm using this cleanse is because it works. In my view, as someone who has been studying health and teaching health and writing about health and helping people and being deeply interested in my own health, he's hit the nail right on the head with this cleanse. It's absolutely brilliant. And sound and powerful and compassionate. And, if you decide to join us for the cleanse, or if you decide to purchase one of his books, I invite you to dive in and to really allow yourself to be uplifted by this information and by the spirit that comes through. So for myself, I encountered this cleanse about 6 years ago. I'd been in the health field for quite a while at that time. And while I enjoyed pretty good health, I still had some symptoms that at times were quite scary for me. And I was really frustrated sometimes about them, and actually scared, and couldn't really understand it, because, as I was mentioning, I really took care of myself better than most people that I knew. And, I was vegan, and I didn't drink alcohol, and I did lots of cleanses and juicing and whole foods, very little processed foods. And yet there were some neurological symptoms, as well as some precancerous cells and eye issues as well that were quite scary. And so when this book was given to me by a friend, and I opened it up and began to read, there was kind of this intuitive sense that this guy knew what he was talking about. And Anthony William happens to be channeling all of the information that he presents in the 6 books that he's written so far in an astounding amount of time. He wrote 6 massive books in 6 years, because all of it is just really coming through an external source that he calls the spirit of compassion, which has been speaking to him since he was 4 years old. So he woke up one morning and this voice was speaking to him, and it just said that he would be with him for the rest of his life, and he was here to help people to heal, and began to give him all of the information around, specifically, like very detailed, why people get sick, what is going on in individual people. He could tell exactly what virus was causing issues in people. He could see exactly what heavy metal or what toxin was there. And he could also see exactly which foods would be helpful for that person. And over time of many, many years of working with many hundreds of thousands of people, actually, he finally began to write his books, and now he's helped millions of people. You'll see if you read his books or follow him. He's quite a force. So for me, when I read his book, of course, I was motivated because I just didn't know what to do with these few symptoms that were hanging around. And as I opened it up and I began to understand that it wasn't that I was doing anything wrong, but that I probably still had some toxins in my system that were affecting my neurological system. And he had the methods for getting those out of the system, which I followed and found results immediately. Also, when I encountered his book, many of the things that he was speaking about, I had already found on my own. It felt right for me to include lots of fresh, raw fruits and vegetables, juices, smoothies, lower fat. All of that felt just intuitively right, and also experientially right for me. And so through his gift of being able to channel this information, he's been able to give me those final details that fell into place just beautifully, and that have helped me and so many others. So as I continued to do this cleanse, I thought, well, let's just do the 369 cleanse that he presents in 2 of his books. One is called the Liver Rescue book, and the other is Cleanse to Heal. But my role in this cleanse is to support you, to bring the group together, to create opening and closing ceremonies, to answer your questions, to support, to uplift you, to give you information that will help you to relax into the process. So that's my role, but the blueprint of the diet is coming from Anthony William. So it's called 369 because there's 3 stages to it. And I'm not going to go through it in great detail. Maybe what I'll do when I send out the recording is I'll also send a snapshot of kind of there's charts that you can follow that tell you exactly what you eat for the 9 days. And I've done that in many talks before. So probably I'll leave that off now, but essentially there's 3 stages to it. And the first stage is about, beginning to relieve the liver and the body of some of the burdens of digesting certain foods, but also of some of the toxins that might be coming in, and also the burden of having to deal with these viral byproducts and these bacterial byproducts, which are just really overwhelming, the body and the detoxification channels. So the first 3 days are about kind of removing all of those no foods, starting to bring in quite a number of apples actually throughout the day. Apples, he says, are one of the best foods to rehydrate the liver and the body in general, but also it tends to be a really good scrubber as well of kind of loosening up the toxins in the body. As you move into the third phase, so days 4, 5, and 6, essentially there, what's happening is now you take out all the radical fats. So there's no obvious fats at all the last 6 days. So no nuts, no seeds, no avocado, of course, no meat, no dairy, no oils, nothing that is high fat, essentially. And actually the whole diet is fruits and vegetables, herbs, and wild foods. And so that is the phase in which the liver begins to really kind of rev up. It's preparing itself to do that big purge, which is the last 3 days. So it's the phase in which, okay, we're getting hydrated here. Now we're going to bring in some nutrients that really help to not only cleanse, but also repair the organs, but particularly the liver. So you eat a lot of Brussels sprouts and asparagus, actually, which have nutrients that are oriented towards the core of the liver, where a lot of the damage by toxins happens, and also where a lot of the toxins get stored. And these 2 foods have nutrients that have the capacity to, one, dissolve that hard coating that is around these pockets of toxins, also to neutralize the toxins and to carry them out of the system. And finally, the nutrients in those foods also help to repair the damage that was created by those toxins in the first place. So pretty brilliant. And you'll read all about this as you look into the cleanse. And I highly suggest that people do read, because it's very encouraging to know why you're doing what you're doing. And there's so much compassionate support throughout as well, which I think is a beautiful aspect of this man's teachings and sharings. And then the last 3 days, now we're going very, very high water content, and this is flushing time. So that, we're giving the body lots of cucumbers, celery juice twice a day now, still lots of apples, quite a number of salads. And the very last day is actually all liquids. So it's juices and blended foods. And that's kind of that final push. And then there's some suggestions for how to move back into your daily routine, but we can talk about that later. But I feel like the design of the cleanse is very brilliant. It's very easy to follow, beautifully and logically laid out. You can just kind of let go into it. There's no second guessing. It just tells you exactly what you eat. There's a lot of variety in the salads, which is great. One of my favorite salads on this cleanse is, and it may not sound good, but I love it. It's a banana salad. So there's lots of lettuce and sprouts and celery in there, but also I slice up 2 or 3 bananas on top, usually an orange juice type dressing, and then chop a bunch of figs in there. Of course, some red onion and things like that. And I just love that. I find fruit in salads makes it feel really hearty and satisfying because of the caloric value. And I tend to be someone that really likes the sweet side of things. So I'll be sharing recipes with you as well as we go along to give you ideas. But, if you don't decide to join us for the rebirth, I hope that this has kind of opened you to possibly the reasons why your symptoms are happening, and opened you to this wonderful practitioner that is doing so much good in the world. And perhaps one day, when you're ready, you can try it on your own. But of course, you're most welcome to join us, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have right now, or questions that might come to you as you reflect on whether or not you want to join us. The cleanse starts actually 10 days from now on the 26th of March. I wanted to give people time to think about it, but also you will need to either purchase or borrow or go to the library and get either Cleanse to Heal or Liver Rescue, so that you have that resource for the cleanse. And I hope that you also perhaps got some clarity around why it is that your symptoms are persisting, and some understanding around the process of the body slowly detoxifying. And to remember, most of us, we may be, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And so these toxins have been building up for quite a while. And so it takes time to regenerate the body. Anthony actually says, and this again might not sound all that encouraging, but he says after 9 years of doing these cleanses regularly, that you've got a new liver, essentially, that you can completely regenerate the liver. It doesn't mean it's going to take that long to get some alleviation from your symptoms. In fact, I think for most, if not all people, they have that experience in just one cleanse. And then, of course, the things that you learn through the cleanse tend to bleed into your regular life. You tend to maybe crave celery juice or crave the liver rescue smoothie or salads. You learn new ways of putting vegetables and salads together, and they can become a part of your regular life. And that's the idea. So I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have around what I said here. So just you can go ahead and open up your mic. I see that nobody's written in the chat bar, but maybe happy to hear from you. Hello, Marguerite.
Hi. It's too hard on my iPad to type it all in on the
screen.
Oh,
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I much rather didn't ask. I have a couple questions. It sounds like I will need a juicer and a blender, which either I don't have, but I think those are essential items, correct?
Well, like, no, a blender could do it for you. So the blender, what you can do instead of juicing the celery, and I did this at first too, not because I didn't have a juicer, I just, for some reason at that time, I found it easier. So what you do is you chop up your celery, you put it in a blender, but you would need like a higher powered blender. Like if you could get a Vitamix or maybe somebody that you can borrow one from, like a Vitamix or a Blendtec, something that's pretty powerful. But people tell me that the Magic Bullet is good too. But essentially a high power blender, you put the celery in there, no water, you kind of just stomp it down, and it will become kind of like a smoothie, right? And then you can strain that through a nut milk bag, which you can purchase at any health food store. Maybe not any, but I know Nature's Emporium has it. So you pour it into a nut milk bag and you squeeze it out. And so now you've separated the fiber from the juice, and you can consume it that way. And then also, actually, the heavy metal detox smoothie, of course, sorry, it's not the heavy metal detox. It's with this cleanse, it's the liver rescue smoothie. And if you wanted to, you could consume the foods that are in the liver rescue smoothie just as is. So there's banana in there, there's mango, there's dragon fruit, which you can buy frozen at Nature's Emporium. So if you wanted to, you wouldn't necessarily have to blend it. There are ways around that. Sometimes just blending, because there's such large quantities, it just makes it easier. Like days 6 and 7, you're making this, or 7 and 8, you're making this liver rescue soup, which has like literally an 8-ounce pack of spinach in it. So yes, you could chew that, but if you blend it with your tomato and herbs and whatnot, it's just that much easier to consume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another question I have, I've just worked with a naturopathic doctor right now, and I had a blood test done to discover or to see if I have any food sensitivities. And what came back is I have high candida, so I'm on a candida diet right now, and I have also celery was one of the things came back definitely not to eat. And I eat a lot of celery. I like celery.
Mhm.
And so now I'm a little bit in a conflict of
Mhm.
which way to go. And I would much rather embark on what you're offering right now. That really speaks to me.
Mhm.
And this conflict of, all kinds of information and what's good, what's not good for myself. So that's kind
Absolutely,
of what
I
I'm.
understand. You're pointing
What
out exactly the issue that so many people have, right? You could see 5
Mhm.
different naturopaths and they would have a different approach. So I don't want to
That's right.
I don't want to contradict the naturopath, but what I can do is, or what you can do actually, just go to Google or wherever you do your searches, put in medical medium and candida. Fabulous, you'll find a fabulous blog and even maybe a talk that he's done on it. People who have high candida actually
Mhm.
also have high viral levels. And so the candida is actually there to protect you against the viruses. So the reason why candida goes high is it's trying to, when a virus is eating toxins and foods, it will, it's going to give off some pretty nasty chemicals. So the candida actually goes ahead and eats all of those foods in order to prevent the viruses from having so much to eat. It's actually there to protect you. So anytime someone has high candida, there's also going to be high viruses. Now, sugar isn't what makes candida grow. Viruses are. So you have to really deal with the viruses and you'll find the candida comes down. Fruit actually has 4 times more phytonutrients than even vegetables. And the sugars are the delivery system to get those nutrients in fruit into the cells in order to destroy the viruses and whatnot. So fruit is actually, in my opinion, is your friend. And many people have healed from candida eating a very high fruit diet, but you have to take the fats out and, just
It makes
like
all sense.
it,
I can absolutely see that it resonates with me for sure.
yeah,
Can you tell me that website one more time? Medical?
medical medium.
Yeah.
Let's see now. Let's see.
And then Candida.
Yeah, medical medium and candida. That's right. If you don't find it, then let me know and I'll send you it. But I think if you do that search,
is that from the Medium? From
yeah,
what's
it's
his
from
name?
Anthony William.
Also, the website is from him. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to be
okay.
What you're going to probably find. It'll be a blog that is connected to his website. That's right.
Okay. I will check it out.
Great.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Then let me know if you have any other questions, Marguerite.
Yes. Okay. I'll get back to you.
All right. Anyone else? I see a couple of people. Andrea said, I felt great after the first one. I did a few years ago with you. I'll see you on Sunday and then on the 26th. Wonderful. Nice. And Norma also said she'll see us on the 26th. Beautiful. Any other questions? Hi, Monica.
Hello. I was just that you had mentioned about the frozen dragon fruit. I keep looking for it and I cannot find it. I've had the powdered, like I've used the powdered before.
Yes.
And so I was thinking, is this something I have to try to order? So I was looking at Nature's actually just the last time I was there, but maybe I'm not looking in the correct
You're
spot.
not.
Just that you mentioned that
You're not. They hide
okay.
it.
I'm like, I want to get this dragon fruit frozen.
I know. Well, they don't actually. I haven't find the powder lately. So when you go to, the supplement section at Nature's.
Oh, where all the probiotics are?
In the far left corner. There's
Yes.
a bunch of frozen kind of super fruits there, and you'll see the little packets of dragon fruit.
Oh.
Yeah.
So not in the regular frozen fruit section.
No.
Okay. I've looked several times and I'm like, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I would just do that. That's a great smoothie to do
Oh, it's
Just
delicious. I love
right?
that. I love that smoothie so much.
I know.
Hmm.
I do the heavy metal one every day mostly, but yeah. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a nice change to do the liver rescue one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
Last question.
Of
All
course.
the instructions that we get, what you were saying, that we get that through you forwarding that to us, or is it in one of the books?
Both.
I
What happens when you sign up, just like when you sign up for any of my classes, you get access to a home page. And so I'll step you through, how, steps to take as you approach the cleanse. There are areas with recipes, shopping lists,
okay.
meditations, etc. But you will need the book as well. Yeah. It's good to have that because it's so much great information that I wouldn't even be able to share. And plus, there are recipes there and all the charts are there. If you get the Cleanse to Heal, which is the one I suggest, it's his most recent one. He's got different versions of it as well, like a beginner, original, and advanced one. So you can take a look and see which one might feel best for you. Yeah, and all the rationale behind it as well. And the other thing about Cleanse to Heal, what's beautiful about it is if you have other symptoms, you go to the back of the book and you can look them up, and there's a whole section that tells you exactly what's going on. Just brilliant. And also which foods and which supplements to, if you want to. You don't have to include the supplements, but what you can do to help that particular symptom. And it really helps you to understand. If you know why things are happening, it's really easy to get on board and to just do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Mhm. Okay, well, thanks for being here. Great to see you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Have a lovely, lovely evening, and we'll hope to see you soon. Bye.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Good night, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.